What happens when a diagnosis changes the way you see yourself? For some people, receiving a mental health diagnosis can bring relief and understanding. For others, it can bring fear, stigma, denial, and the question, is this who I am now? Today's guest is Reza Ghaemi. I hope I got your name correctly.
Yes.
Okay. So he's the author of Bipolar Is My Superpower, How Acceptance Changed My Life, and also the host of the Rez Podcast. Reza was diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder in 2018, following his first elevated episode and hospitalization. After years of struggling with acceptance, multiple manic episodes, and hospitalizations, he eventually discovered that accepting his diagnosis didn't mean surrendering to it. It meant understanding it, taking responsibility for his health, recognizing his risks, and learning how to build a meaningful life alongside it. Today, Reza speaks openly about mental health, stigma, treatment, faith, family, creativity, self-awareness, and what it means to rebuild your identity after a diagnosis. And importantly, when Reza calls bipolar disorder a superpower, he isn't glorifying mania or psychosis. He's talking about the resilience, perspective, gratitude, and purpose he developed through recovery. Reza, welcome to Control or Be Controlled.
Thank you so much for that intro. Thank you. I appreciate it, Darlington. Thank you. Pleasure
Thank
to
you
be
so
here.
much. All right, and I'm glad you enjoyed that intro. So, take us back to 2018. What happened when you were first diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder,
Oh
and
my
what was
God.
going through your mind?
Oh my goodness. So you got to realize when you first get diagnosed with this disorder, some of the textbook symptoms are your grandiosis, you're feeling on top of the world, you feel like a celebrity, you feel spiritual, you feel like you're on top of the world. And those textbook symptoms are very true based on my experience and based on some of the things that I noticed among other folks in the hospital that I was with. But to answer your question, so the episode itself was very glorious, right? I don't want to get into the episode itself. That's irrelevant. But the diagnosis was very, 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 very heavy. Because what happened was it was actually Persian New Year. So I'm Persian, Iranian. And I remember this very clearly. It was I was working at a very major tech company. I'm not going to say the name just for privacy concerns, but one of the biggest tech companies in the world. There's a few of them. There's Google, there's Microsoft, there's Amazon, there's Apple. Fuck it, I'll just say, I'm sorry, can I swear on this show?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just going to say I was working at Microsoft, and this is when the first episode happened. So I found myself in a state where I was not sleeping very much. I was waking up at like 4 a.m. I was buying expensive suits to go to work. And these are, again, the symptoms of bipolar disorder, right? You're spending a lot of money. You're not sleeping much. You're feeling like grandiose. And then I would go to work and long story short, I found myself in a state where I was at a Persian dinner for New Year's, Persian New Year. It was the first day of spring, March 21st, let's say, 2018. And that's when it all happened. I had a conflict with my family, and the conflict was pretty major. And my brother-in-law, he took me to the hospital. And while I was in the hospital, I was in a state of denial. I was like, why am I here? And that's when it all started. Then I was basically taken into the hospital for about 3 weeks. So yeah, I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, sure, you did. So tell us why accepting the diagnosis was so difficult for you, and what did denial look like in your life?
So when you first are diagnosed with bipolar disorder, it's a very scary thing. Because of what we've known, what we have understood about the disorder in society. It is somebody that's crazy. That's the definition of bipolar. I remember growing up, I would always call people, is this person bipolar? Is that person bipolar? I would use the term bipolar to describe a crazy person. So the term bipolar disorder is a very heavy term. And so when you're first diagnosed with that, it is shocking. It's just, and on top of the negative connotations that bipolar disorder has, because of the manic episode that you experienced, you are in denial. So in other words, you want to believe that the episode was true. And that's when medication comes into play.
Okay, so you experienced multiple manic episodes and hospitalizations. Can you share with us what those experiences taught you about bipolar disorder that you couldn't understand at first?
Yeah. So I talk about this in my book, by Bipolar Is My Superpower. And you can purchase it on Amazon for $9.99 USD. And I hope your listeners would be able to purchase it. It's a very powerful book, and it's about acceptance. And I think so out of my manic episodes, what I learned throughout those episodes was a series of events. The first was you're in denial about the diagnosis, because oftentimes what happens is the doctors will prescribe something very, very much standard towards towards treatment of bipolar disorder. It is what you things like, in my case, it was Epival as the commercial name for it. Things like Heldol, things like olanzapine. These are very sedative drugs. These are drugs that sort of you would give to a horse as a tranquilizer. Very heavy on your mental brain. And what happens is they called it a mood stabilizer, but in reality, I have bipolar type 1. I was up and up and up. So the medication that they gave me brought me down, so down that in the book, I explained this. I was in Mexico at an all-inclusive resort with my family on the beach, Darlington. Can you imagine being in Mexico on an all-inclusive island, or rather a beach, feeling depressed? Can you imagine that? So that's where I found myself. I was depressed in this situation. And it was all due to the medication that they had prescribed to me. And so, long story short, after numerous, after giving this medication a shot, I came off of it. And then I had to, long story short, I was hospitalized again and then hospitalized again. And the book really goes over the journey that I had with bipolar disorder into finally accepting it as something that I can sort of work with, and how do I live life with this disorder, by accepting the condition instead of running away from it, because I was in denial the whole time. I was trying to manipulate my doctors by telling them that it was because of drugs, it was because of unhealthy lifestyle. And the reality is nobody really knows what the cause of this disorder is. It's genetics, lifestyle. So yeah, I that's a long answer to your question.
Okay, thank you so much. Reza. So your book is called Bipolar Is My Superpower. Why did you choose that title, and what does superpower mean to you in this context?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. So, bipolar is my superpower. Acceptance is what changed my life. The subtitle. I chose to embrace this disorder after sort of the journey that I had. I think that I would say perhaps Kanye West. Shout out to Kanye West. He had a impact. Some other celebrities with the disorder. Some of the celebrities I can't remember right now on top of my head, but Kanye West was a big influence as to why I called it superpower, because he has a song called "Yikes" in one of his albums, and the song, at the end of the song, he says, rather the graphic and the thumbnail of the song is, "I love bipolar and I hate it," or something along those lines. And in the song, at the end of the song, he says, "It's my superpower." And really, through self-development work on myself, I decided that I want to embrace this. And the idea of why I called it superpower was because I figured I went through hell. Darlington, when you experience a manic episode, it is hell. Trust me. You see hell and heaven at the same time on earth. And for me, it was an opportunity to really reflect and say, listen, this experience made me so strong that I will call it a superpower, because nothing else is as bad as that. And the fact that I lived through that and I'm alive still is my superpower. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, sure. So, you turned your pain into power. That's nice.
Yes, exactly.
So, what actually helped you to move from resisting your diagnosis to accepting it?
What? Sorry, one more time.
What helped you from
Mhm.
resisting your diagnosis to accepting it?
I would say time. I would say many years. This is why impatience is the enemy. We in life have to be patient individuals. Time is our friend sometimes, right? And so for me, it's like you asking me, how is it that you can just DJ without feeling stressed? Well, because I spent 10 years DJing. I spent 8 years DJing. So for me, I spent about 6 or 7 years being in denial. And then finally, throughout the years, throughout the work I did on myself and through this inspiration, the songs that some of these folks like Kanye West had, and then part of my art, my work as a DJ, it brought that, that out of me to just embrace this and be okay with it, and not be afraid of my boss, not be afraid of my coworkers, not be afraid of what are other people going to think of this. Because look, if Kanye West is okay with it, then I'm okay with it too. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, so what does acceptance look like in practice? Is it simply just acknowledging the diagnosis, or does it require changing how you live?
It's a great question. Um, I would say, I would say, for me at least, it's not necessary. Yes, it is changing how you live in the sense that you want to do what you can in order to have good inner dialogue with yourself. And again, self improvement, there are different channels towards self-improvement. I can resonate with one school of thought, and X can resonate with another school of thought. But in general, self-improvement is the key towards acceptance. So when I say self-improvement, for me, the channel of self-improvement included things like social skills and, inner dialogue, improving my inner dialogue with myself, therapy work, and those types of things. So I don't necessarily go to the gym. I should, but I want to make it clear that for me, some of the cliche of working on yourself is things like stop drinking, stop smoking marijuana, stop doing drugs. Of course, for somebody with bipolar disorder, those things are very bad. But for me, what helped the most was that inner dialogue with myself through therapy and coaching.
Okay, so I think part of self-improvement is that inner dialogue with yourself. So tell us about the role that faith, music, DJing, creativity, and podcasting, the role they played in your recovery and identity.
You know what? That's a great question. They all had a role in my confidence. Confidence is huge. For somebody that is diagnosed early on with bipolar disorder, it really, really damages their confidence, right? Because again, the world is just so uneducated about this disorder. They don't even know what it is. They've only seen that it means somebody that is bipolar means that they're crazy. So for me, the art, the faith, and by the way, when you become, when you have a manic episode or a hypomanic episode, you become very spiritual. This is something that is a very textbook thing. I'm not saying that for my own self. It is a very textbook phenomenon in the literature that people become very spiritual. And for me, every episode brought me closer to Christianity for some weird reason. And so faith, I embraced, and this is why I call it a superpower, because I embraced that aspect of the episode after the fact, and I became more religious as a result of the episode. And so faith was a big part of my recovery. And I became a Christian ultimately as a result of the episodes.
So what about DJing, podcasting, music?
Right. I forgot to mention that. So those were just creative outlets. The podcasting was a way for me to feel more confident. Like I'm doing a hobby. I'm doing something that I love to do. Right. This art is a very necessary thing to do for mental health. Right. It's a creative way to express yourself, to let your inner inhibitions go. And so for me, the podcasting and the DJing were those outlets. And it helped me a lot throughout the process of recovery.
All right. So what are some biggest misconceptions that people have about bipolar disorder, especially when it comes to mania?
Oh my goodness. I love the question. So, well, first of all, I'll answer that first by answering the first part. The biggest misconception that people with bipolar disorder have is that they think that somebody is moody, that their mood goes up and down on a constant basis. I'm happy, I'm sad. I'm happy, I'm sad. That is what most people think bipolar disorder is. It is not the case at all for me personally with type 1 bipolar. It could be the case for bipolar type 2 individuals that that experience more depressive episodes. But for a type 1 individual, it's more mania. You're feeling on top of the world, right? And sorry, what was the second part of your question? Oh, when it comes to the manic episode, right?
Yes.
Misconceptions. I would say misconceptions would be on the manic episode that somebody is aware of what they are what they're experiencing. So when somebody is in a full-on manic episode, it's dangerous, man. It's dangerous as hell. This is why Kanye West in his song Yikes says, sometimes I scare myself. Sometimes I scare myself. And that's very true, Darlington. It is a very scary thing. Nobody really knows what causes it. We know it's genetics and we know it's lifestyle, but nobody really knows what the hell's going on. So the misconception is two things: that it's a up and down type of happy, unhappy thing, which is not the case. And the episode itself, you're really immersed in a delusional type of setting where if you are doing certain things, you're not really understanding why you're doing them. And hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Reza. So, for someone who has just received a bipolar diagnosis and is terrified that their life is over, what would you want them to hear?
Oh my goodness. What I would want them to hear is it is something that can be fixed by working on, again, their inner dialogue, and by acceptance of the condition is the first step. I talk about this in my book. I compare it to recovery from drugs. You see, oftentimes mental health disorders are concurrent with drug disorders. So we call this concurrent disorders, mental health and drug addiction. And the idea that I want to emphasize is in a drug recovery, oftentimes the most popular forms of treatment is AA, Alcohol Anonymous. And in those meetings, the first step is to admit and to accept that you have a problem. It is the same thing with bipolar disorder. The first step is to admit or to accept this. And that is going to take some time. So I would say give it some time, read my book, and hopefully you'll accept this sooner than later. And that will change your life.
All right. So finally, what does a meaningful life look like after diagnosis? How did acceptance help you begin building yours?
Amazing question. Thank you, Darlington. So I think to answer that, it would be a life where you accept that you need to take the medication. This is not ADHD. This is not anxiety. This is not depression. This is bipolar disorder, and you need to take your medication. If anybody is listening to this and they've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, please understand that you need to take medication, and thank God that you're living in 2026 where there is good medication with minimal side effects. And so a healthy lifestyle looks like that. Similar to somebody with diabetes, similar to somebody with thyroid problems. They need their medication, and so do you. So please, I urge you, if you are diagnosed with bipolar disorder, take medication. You are still the same person. It's not the end of the world. We're all we all need medication somehow, whether it's vitamin D, whether it's Abilify, or something else. And also try to get the support that you can from friends and family members. And if you don't have that support, get medical treatment. They will give you the support that you need.
All right. Thank you, Reza, for being willing to share such a personal part of your story. One of the most powerful ideas from today's conversation is that acceptance isn't surrender. A diagnosis can be part of someone's story without becoming the entirety of their identity. Understanding yourself, seeking appropriate treatment, accepting support, and taking responsibility for your well being can create space to build a meaningful life. And if you or someone you love is struggling with bipolar disorder or another mental health condition, please seek support from qualified mental health professionals. The podcast conversation is not a substitute for professional care. So, Reza, before you go, how can my listeners connect with you, get your book, and know more about your podcast and the other resources?
Yeah, thank you so much, Darlington. So my podcast is really not related to mental health as much. It's about dating and relationships, but the podcast is the Rez Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at Reza G Life, REZA or REZA G Life on Instagram. And the book will be available on Amazon Prime shipping for $9.99 USD. If you are struggling to afford that, please message me or email me at rezghaemi@gmail.com, REZGHAEMI @gmail.com. And I'll be happy to personally give you a discount of 50%. But this will change your life because I believe that my story is powerful. Thank you so much, Darlington. I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, Reza. This has been wonderful. And thank you for the 50% off your offerings for my audience as well. So, if this episode has helped you see mental health recovery or acceptance differently, subscribe to Control or Be Controlled. Leave a review and share it with someone who may need to hear this. Until next time, stay curious, stay honest, and remember, understanding what you are dealing with is often the first step towards taking back control. Thank you so much, Reza, for coming to my show.
It was my pleasure, Darlington.
Thank you, all my audience. I'll see you guys on the next episode.